Okay, several of you emailed me, remind messaged me, whatever. It was like 5 of y'all saying you just needed more examples of domain and range, which is great. Y'all could have asked me that yesterday in class or come to office hours. I'm not making fun of you. It's a good thing you asked. We'll go over it some more today, but I just want to make sure we all are aware, like, you are allowed to ask me to do more examples, okay? So don't be scared. I'm a very nice lady. All right, domain range intervals. When you are finding domain, you are talking about what values? Let's review. What are we talking about?
The X and Y. I mean the X and X.
Yes, the X's, and it's the smallest. You always go smallest to biggest. So looking at a graph, where are the smallest X's going to be? The left side. So I need all eyeballs right now. I don't want you working, so I want you to really listen so it'll click with you. The smallest X's will always be all the way on the left. Where are the biggest X's going to be?
On the right.
Good. So when you guys do domain, you should always be going, starting on the left and going to the right. Okay? So start all the way on the left of this graph. Look what's on the farthest left-hand side. It's an arrow. What does that arrow do? What does it mean? It keeps going.
Forever.
Yes, it keeps going. So this arrow is going to keep going to the left forever and ever and ever. So does everybody agree that means it goes to infinity? Now, since it's on the left, what kind of infinity does it have to be? Negative.
Yeah.
Then we go to the right side because we're doing smallest X to biggest X. Okay, thank you. All right, look on the right-hand side. It's also an arrow. That's the last thing we see on the right side. What does that arrow do?
Go on forever.
Going forever, but it's on the right, so it goes to positive infinity. We talked about yesterday, that will always be your domain. Right? I feel like we should be okay with domain. Even if you're like, it's always negative infinity, positive infinity. It's not going to change because those arrows keep going left and right forever. Okay? All right, when you do range, what values am I talking about for the range?
I have a question for domain.
Okay, what's your question for domain?
Would the arrows ever be on the same side?
Not for a parabola, because remember, a parabola is U-shaped.
Okay.
We're going to do in 3 units a different kind of function where there's actually only one arrow. So it's just even easier because you only got one arrow to look at. Huh? Nope. Lines have 2 arrows. All right, range. We're talking about the Y values. That's what I heard y'all say. Smallest Y to biggest Y. Think about the Y values. Those are your vertical values, right? Okay, which one's smaller? The ones on the bottom or the ones on the top? Bottom. So
Bottom.
whenever you're doing range, you're always going to go bottom to top. Always. Because when you list a interval, you do smallest to biggest. That was in our definition. So I have a lot of y'all not starting on the bottom, and that's where you're messing up. You're doing the values right, but you're not starting where you should. So let's talk about the range really quick. I told you yesterday, if you label, and I just labeled it wrong. Lord, Miss Poole. I told you yesterday, if you label the vertex, it will help you find the range. So I'm going to label my vertex. What is the bottom Y value on this parabola? Start at the bottom of the pink. What's the Y value? 1. Now, 1 is a real number that I can see on that graph, right? So what do we use, Henry? A bracket, because you can see it touching 1. I had a couple questions about that yesterday, so I want to give y'all a good analogy. Do you guys remember in Math 1 having to graph these 2 things? And when it was greater than, you would go to 3 and you draw the arrow to the right. But what kind of circle did you use?
Just
An open one? Because there's no equal bar? And then when you graphed the second one, the difference was you still went to the right, but you used a shaded point. Do y'all remember doing that in Math 1? Very similar to what we're doing right now. So look at this again. That point is shaded on 1, which means it can equal 1. So you've got to use a bracket. Okay? Now that's the bottom Y value. I'm looking for questions. Does everybody understand 1 is the bottom Y value? Anybody want to tell me why it's at the bottom? Because it's a minimum. Look at you with that vocab. Good job. Extra credit. He's excited. I saw you smiling. It's a minimum. So it has to start at the bottom, at that minimum, which is 1. Then you go to the top Y value. Look at the top of the pink parabola. What do y'all see? Arrows, which means it goes up forever. So what kind of infinity do you think it is if it's going up?
Positive.
There we go. So I'm going to pause there. What questions do we have about range? As I pick up whatever I just dropped. Does that help me talking about the left to right, bottom to top? Okay.
Miss Paul,
What's up, Ben?
I'll tell you something funny.
Okay, let me pause.
I
You're
was-
good. Just overthinking, second guessing.
If the parabola,
Yes, good. We're going to talk about that. What did you say? And then I want to say what he said because it was really good.
if the parabola was flipped, would I still go bottom to top?
Yes. So this one down here, you guys see how I gave you a negative down here? It's so that we can look at one where the arrows are at the bottom. Okay. I love what Chris just said. So everybody listen. I'm going to write it right here. If you want to write it, awesome. If it's a minimum, it is always going to start on the left with a number and go to infinity. Because if it's a minimum, the bottom of it will be the vertex and it'll go up. What about if it's a maximum? What kind of infinity does it start at? So there we go. Everybody look, I'm just giving you a preview. This might help a lot of y'all that it didn't click with yesterday. If you have a maximum and you're doing range and you're going bottom to top, like we just wrote down, look at the bottom, there's arrows going down. So if it's a maximum, it's always going to start down at the bottom at negative infinity and then go to the highest point, which will be a number.
Good afternoon, staff.
I'm going to give you some tricks today. So Chris, very good job. Second extra credit point of the day. He's killing it. If it's a minimum, it starts at the bottom with a number and goes up. Y'all know if it's a min, that means it opens up. So it's going to go to positive infinity. If it's a max, it opens down. So it's always going to start down at the bottom at negative infinity and go up to the highest point, which will be a number. That might help you with range as well. Any questions on domain and range before I talk about the intervals? I'm making sure we all understand. Anybody online? My people in class look like they're okay. Is which one supposed to be? Okay, if I don't put a sign with the infinity, it's an understood positive. So you can leave it blank or you can put the plus sign. They mean the same thing. That's a great question. Now this one is negative because if it's a max, it's going to start down at the bottom and those arrows go down. All right, I think we're okay. Online people, am I good to go on to intervals?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. So interval of increase. So I always abbreviate. I'm just going to do an up arrow, if that's okay with everybody. All right, when you're doing your intervals, I told you yesterday, label your vertex and draw your axis of symmetry down the middle because it will help. It creates the two sides, okay? So look at this pink graph. Which side, the left or the right, is increasing? The right-hand side, very good. Does everybody agree with me and Carter that the right-hand side is the one that goes up from the point? Everybody sees that? Okay, so if we're just looking at the right-hand side, where does the right-hand side start? At
-2.
Yes, notice I said where. I didn't say at what value. The value is 1. If I'm asking you where, I'm asking for the location, which is the x. So it starts increasing on that wall at -2, and it increases on the entire right side. So it increases till it hits what?
Infinite.
Positive infinity. Good. Very good. So listen, we put -2 to positive infinity. Because it is increasing on that right side. Draw your axis of symmetry. It'll help you see the two sides.
And you would put a parentheses, not a bracket, because it's just sitting there.
Right. So at this middle point, thank you, Beatty. At that middle point, it is just sitting there. Think about when you're on a roller coaster, either at the bottom starting or when you first go up to the top, you always sit for a second. So you can't say that it is increasing right at -2. As soon as it passes -2, it's going to start going up. So that's why we use a parenthesis. All right, which side is it decreasing on? Obviously the left. That's the only one we haven't used, right? So on the left side, it's going down. Now look on the left. There's an arrow that keeps going. So where does it start going down?
Infinity.
Negative infinity, because it's on the left, and it's going to go down until it hits where? -2.
Two.
Yes. Does that help with intervals? A lot of y'all were getting your intervals backwards, so I just want to make sure. Label your vertex, draw your axis of symmetry. That's why the directions said y'all to identify the vertex and the axis of symmetry before you graph. What questions do we have? We're going to do another one. I'm just making sure. A lot of y'all sound panicked in your messages. Like I wouldn't go over it today. Y'all know I go over stuff. We're okay? All right, I'm gonna keep going. Now this one, some of y'all love y'all mean it. You are still graphing wrong. I can't help you if you don't know how to graph. So let's make sure we're all on the same page with these graphs. Where is the vertex of this equation gonna be at? Very good. I heard 1, 3. Does everybody agree? Remember, inside with the X does the opposite. Good. So go over 1, up 3. Jaden, you're doing great work, bud.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's our vertex. Now, how do you know where to go to find the points on either side? Yes. Okay, Jordan said, look at the A. So did some other people. Look at the A and do what, Jordan? Over 1.
Down 2.
Good. Your friend is helping you out. Over 1 and down 2 because it's a -2. So everybody look on both sides. You always go over 1. We want a point on each side. And since it's -2, I'm going, Connor, you with me, bud? Since it's -2, I'm going to go down 2. So this is where my other 2 points are. So this is the parabola I'm asking for the domain range intervals of. I know I didn't hit the dot. Drawing is not my strong suit. I will tell you what I'm bad at. I'm bad at drawing. I'm bad at being quiet. I'm terrible at softball. Don't ask me to play it ever. That might be about it. I don't like reading. I used to. Then they made me read too many books I didn't like in high school and college. So there we have it. Any questions on graphing? So do you think you'll actually have to like physically graph on your test? No. How am I going to make you graph it on the test? Oh, she said you would find a way. No. So the graphing problems on the test are multiple choice. I give you an equation and I say which of the following is the right graph. And you just have to pick the right one. So make sure you understand where the vertex would be and then use that A to find the next 2 points, okay? Yeah, I can go over it again. Okay, so the vertex, remember if it's inside with the X, it changes. It's the opposite. So this would be +1, +3. So that's where I started, 1, 3. So then the next thing you're going to do is look at that number out front. It's a -2, which means when I go over on each side, I've got to go down 2 for the next 2 points. If it was +2, then either one on each side would go up 2. If it's +1/2, it would just go up 1/2, like right here on each side. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, domain range intervals. I'm gonna let y'all try it. What's the domain? Y'all can just shout it out to me.
Negative infinity and positive infinity.
Perfect, because these arrows go left and right forever. Left and right forever. Domain is left to right. It'll always be negative infinity, positive infinity for a quadratic. All right, I'm gonna switch colors. What is the range? Very good. I hope y'all heard her, but just in case you didn't, let's go over our tricks. Bottom to top, LOL. Bottom to top, start at the bottom, and look, this one has a max, right? Everybody look at these notes right here. It's got a max, so it's gonna start at negative infinity and go to the number, which would be 3. Does everybody agree? So she said negative infinity to 3, and she even said bracket.
Brackets.
Mm-hmm. Extra credit. Good job. These 2 things that I wrote here, I hope you wrote them because they should help you on your test. It's a little cheat sheet. All right. Which side is the graph increasing on?
Or left.
The left. Good. Now listen, what did I tell you? Go draw your axis of symmetry. Draw a line right through that vertex, right through the middle. The left side is the side that's going up. So where does the left side start at if there's an arrow that keeps going to the left?
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity, and it's going to increase till it hits where? Ooh, be careful.
3. Oh,
Be careful. That's where y'all will mess up. You'll put 3 on the test. I sure did put 3 as an answer choice. Don't pick it until it gets to 1. Then when it hits 1, does everybody agree it turns around and it'll decrease on the right side? Okay, y'all name that interval for me. Where does it start decreasing and where does it stop?
1 and negative. Oh, yeah. Wait. Positive.
Yeah, why is it positive?
Because it go on the positive side.
It's on the right. Very good. Do we feel better? I hope so too, because I just spent 22 minutes doing that crap. Not that it's crap. I haven't called it crap, especially when I'm recording. Oh well. Where is Zoom recording? Do you want to just borrow a pen? For intervals, why don't y'all just use a pen? I'm tossing you a pen. Here. Look at that catch. For intervals, if it's the interval on the left, it's going to start at negative infinity and go to the middle. If it's the interval on the right, it's going to start at the middle and go to positive infinity. Every single time for intervals. That is a trick you can use. So now you've got a trick for intervals, a trick for domain and range. I'm not going to move it. You're good, bud. All right, listen before you leave. I'm leaving the Zoom open. You have 34 minutes until I close it to work on your test review. I know I posted extra credit, but listen really carefully. Children always be like, give me extra credit when y'all don't do the regular credit. The test review is its own classwork grade. It is due at 10 a.m. tomorrow because I've got to go over it in class. So work on your test review. Whatever you don't finish in these 34 minutes, that's your homework. And then the extra credit isn't even due until tomorrow at midnight. So you still have a chance to do the extra credit if you wanted it, okay? So my Zoom babies, I'm going to stop recording, but you guys are more than welcome to stay up here while you work on your test review.